Ding. That's your phone going off. That's your notifications going off. And what that means is that you're going to be distracted. You're going to get distracted with your next notification, your next Facebook post, the next Instagram post, the next LinkedIn post. I don't care what social media platform you're on. It's that notification that goes off on your phone, the distraction that you have in your pocket if you're walking around, or in your earbuds. If you're listening to us with earbuds, you might get a distraction in your earbuds telling you that, hey, you've got another notification. So today I want to discuss about those notifications, about those distractions, and how if you're not paying attention to them, if you're not noticing them in real time, if you're not realizing that they are keeping you away from whatever goal you've got set up for yourself. Now, I'm not saying you can't have some distractions. There are some times to have some downtime. I have downtime too. But going back to the discussion we had in the last episode, talking about clarity, if you're not crystal clear on exactly what you're trying to accomplish, every single time you get one of those notification dings in your phone or in your earbuds or whatever you're doing, you're pulling yourself away. You're distancing yourself away from this goal, this achievement that you're trying to accomplish. And those distractions, where are you falling short as far as allowing them to control you? That's the discussion I want to have here today on the Rich Mind podcast. So we definitely welcome you back. Greg Young is here with us again today. We're going to talk about distractions. I think that we, in a world, in a sea of information, in a sea of cell phones, in a sea of marketing and just stuff all the time, how do we get away from those distractions? Any thoughts on that, Greg?
That's a tough question,
Yeah,
man.
there you go. Yeah, that was a question right back at you. Right. Think about that. How do we get away from them, man?
Yeah,
That's
I
what,
don't
yeah,
know.
you're going to come up with the answer right now.
Right now, here's the answer.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we can't get away from them. I think you have to control them as best you can for, your lifestyle and, what you have going on. But yeah, I'll say for a couple of years, I actually had the benefit or the privilege of not having to have my phone on during the day for the most part. My phone was usually with me. So if Randy called or somebody called, I would get the call. But now as a business owner and a realtor, yeah, my phone's on and all of a sudden I get these messages and everything. I'm like, oh, I got to fix my notifications because some I need to come through. A lot of them I don't. So yeah, there's just digital distractions everywhere. There's, non-digital distractions, like real life distractions. I mean, there's just so much going on in this world. And we'll kind of get into, I want to talk a little bit about the science of it. Not that I'm a scientist, but I'm listening to a few people who I really like and respect. So I can kind of give you a overall view of that and everything, but real interesting. And we're definitely going to dive into, just more distractions and how we can really overcome or maybe minimize them is a better word.
So every one of those distractions, I was listening to someone talk about this the other day, and it really hit home with the idea of thinking that every one of those distractions is a dopamine hit that we have or we get. And I think that's a lot of the science you're going to talk about, Greg. So I don't want to steal your thunder, but at the same time, I wanted to kind of bring that up front at the beginning of the conversation, talking about we'll get those notifications and we want to see what's being said or we want to see what somebody else is doing. For example, even with the podcast, is I have it downloaded on my phone. I get as far as like downloads, I can go in and check how many downloads I'm getting. I can check how much reach I'm having. I can check the statistics on a social media post. And when I get distracted with those type of notifications, it feels good or it feels bad. It doesn't necessarily feel good all the time, meaning if you don't necessarily get the outcome that you're looking for, sometimes I'll check something. It's like, man, I spent a lot of time on that post and it didn't get anything. So that's a negative dopamine hit. But at the same time, it's that same, you're trying to get a quick fix. Your mind and your brain is trying to get a quick fix of dopamine to try to, it's a sensation that you're trying to accomplish more and more. These businesses, the Facebooks, which is obviously Instagram as well, the TikToks, all of the different social media platforms, they've learned through their algorithms how to get us caught in those traps of those dopamine hits, and they keep us coming back. Once again, I'm saying that I'm not perfect at it, because I'm not. But I will say, and like you said, Greg, being able to turn your phone off, or at least be able to turn on your do not disturb. That's what I have on it. For example, right now, even while we're recording, That way I don't get any notifications when I'm in the process of creating something or doing something that's very important towards this achievement, towards this goal that I'm trying to achieve. My phone or these distractions won't be coming in to interfere with my thought process, interfere with what I'm trying to accomplish. I like how you said that. A good friend of ours, Justin Dorff, he's great. Like I'll get on it, because sometimes you jump on, send somebody a text and it'll tell you right at the bottom that this person has got his phone on sleep mode, or it's not, it's on do not disturb. It'll tell you right that in the text. And every time I go to reach out to the guy, that's what he has on, which tells me that he's a protector of his time. He's a protector of his notifications, of his distractions. So if Justin, if you're listening to this, man, kudos to you, because you're probably one of the best at that. You've made me want to even strive to get a little bit better at that for myself. But there are different ways of shutting off those notifications. I use Apple, but I'm sure there was, Samsung or Android phones. I'm sure there's similar ways on those as well. But it's taken, you need to take action and do that for yourself. Budget your calendar, fit your time in of exactly when you want to get done. So for example, on recording days for us here on the podcast, we set aside about a 2-hour window. A lot of times we don't take the full 2 hours, but I will set up a time in the calendar of whatever time the beginning to 2 hours later at the end. But then I'll shut off my phone, or I'll make sure that everybody's aware that, hey, I'm going to be busy, with my kids, right? Or even when I'm watching or dealing with Rowan, it's like, I'm going to be busy. Just don't distract me. Just let me stay focused. So that way I can go out here and accomplish and do the best that I possibly can here on these episodes. So yeah, I love that. So the sleep mode or the do not disturb mode in your phone, the dopamine hits. Yeah, you said you're going to bring some some potential science ideas as well. Any thoughts on those?
Yeah, so I've been following a couple of doctors, Dr. Joe Dispenza and Andrew Huberman, and they are they're kind of like personal development, but they're also scientists, and they're neuroscientists. So they really talk about like neuroplasticity, which is the way your neurons kind of fire in your brain and how you can change different pathways by doing different things. And that's one thing that they kind of talk about. And again, I'm not a scientist, so kind of take this for what it's worth. But yeah, every time you're on Instagram or Facebook, like you're saying, Randy, and you see likes or comments and that kind of thing, it's a mini dopamine hit, which is not really a great thing, because it's kind of conditioning you to every time you open your phone or you look at Facebook, where's that mini dopamine hit coming from next? And you're not really doing or accomplishing very much. You know what I mean? It's not like you're, running a mile or something and you're like, all right, cool, I got some dopamine out of that because I accomplished running a mile outside. It's kind of like, I guess, like lazy dopamine. I don't know if that's even like a thing, but you're really getting those dopamine hits, but you're not really doing much for it. So they really talk about, you know, taking action, and, thoughts are great, but you really have to take action. And then once your brain picks up that pattern of, oh, Randy's doing this 5 days in a row, let's change the neurons and the neural pathway. And then it kind of opens up just different avenues in your brain, and it kind of like repaving a driveway, of like, oh, this is going to be better for Randy's brain. So it's really interesting. That's kind of like the basic of my understanding of the science anyway. So Joe Dispenza, Andrew Huberman, if you guys want to look those guys up, they have podcasts and YouTube channels and everything. Great source of information on the science side of distractions and dopamine, what we're talking about here.
And you've sent me a couple of episodes on YouTube that I've watched, and you're right; those are great resources. If you want to take what we're talking about here today to the next level, I highly recommend you check out those two gentlemen and others as well. But those would definitely be two resources to check out as well, for sure. One thing that's coming to my mind as I'm kind of thinking through the process of this discussion today is going back to a Jim Rohn quote that I remember way back in the beginning of my process of my personal development journey, is that he would say in his audio programs, or he would pose it as a question. He would say, do you know what the number one secret of the rich is? And so he would pose that to a group of people. He was talking to a large group of people, and his answer was time management. That's the number one superpower, the secret of becoming rich and becoming wealthy, is time management. So if that's true, and I'm not saying it is or it isn't, But so just take that for what it's worth. Think about that. If time is the number one resource that we have, that it's a finite, resource. We're losing it more and more every day. We can't get seconds or minutes ago back. But how much of your time are you spending in this distraction phase of your life? To me, it becomes an awareness. Once you become aware of it, you can then begin to take different actions with your distractions. For example, and I was asking Greg before we hit record here today, I get there again, it's a notification, but I get a notification once a week from Apple. And I don't know if I set this up or if it's just on my phone and I never even turned it off, but I get a notification from Apple that tells me how much screen time is what it calls it. How much screen time am I spending on my phone per day? And I'm not going to show you what my number is, because it'll probably be, yeah, it's not as good as it should be, because I need to eliminate more of my distractions as well. But last week, for example, the reason why I even brought that up is last week I was in the zone of doing something that I enjoyed very much throughout the entire week. And my screen time was cut in half, literally cut in half for a week. Now, that was because I made the conscious choice to be 100% immersed in exactly the activity that was going on in my life, that it didn't, any of the distractions that I had, I didn't need to go check my notifications. I didn't need to go check my podcast downloads. I had everything set up ahead of time, meaning going into the week, I had all of my social media posts ready. I had all of the episodes recorded and edited and published, and I had all of it set up before the week began, which allowed me then to focus on this activity that I was in, which kept me away from the distractions of the notifications that I'm sucked down that rabbit trail all the time, continuously. So, if the number one secret of the rich is time management, which is what Jim Rohn taught me many, many, many years ago, where is it that you can implement some of these ideas in your own life? Your phone is a great resource. I was having and this is might sound a little strange to some of you, but I was actually having a dialogue back and forth with AI just the other day. I was having it help me brainstorm an idea. I mentioned at the end of the podcast this last time about I want to bring a journal to the marketplace, but then I also have another idea for a course and a class that I want to bring through to the marketplace as well, to you, the listeners here of the Rich Mind podcast. And so I was brainstorming with it, and it's fun, meaning it's really strange. You're talking to your phone, but it's a dialogue back and forth, which is fascinating. But with that said, it can also be a distraction that I need to make sure that I'm controlling it. I can use it as a tool, but I can also overuse it and get distracted.
Mhm.
It's like a very fine line, because that's where technology these days is fantastic. AI in the world, if you're using it to accomplish bigger and better things in your life, is fantastic, but it can easily and quickly become a major distraction if you're not paying attention. So if you are ready to start paying attention, I would ask you today, as soon as we get off, what's your first action when you turn off this episode? Is it to jump in your notifications of whatever your social media platform of choice is? If that's the case, question that. Is that an activity that you really should be doing? Once again, to me, it goes back to that clarity piece. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? Health, wealth, and legacy are the pillars here of the Rich Mind podcast. If those three resonate with you, which areas of those pillars of your life do you need to be focusing on in this moment, or at least throughout the day? If you get clarity on that, then you're going to be able to turn off your phone, turn off your distractions, get super focused. I say at the end of the podcast, focus on being great. And what I mean by that is get yourself super focused on becoming the person that you need to do or need to be to accomplish these great things that you've got going on in your life. Those are the things that, once again, I'm not perfect at them. I'm not proclaiming that I am. I love how Greg's bringing the science in, bringing in doctors, bringing in, so it's like it almost like clarifies or tells me that, yeah, I'm on the right path of understanding that if I can get control of these dopamine hits and understand that I need them as well, but if I can also use that on the flip side and get super focused on where I'm trying to go, where I'm trying to achieve, then I can almost like get a win-win. It's like you get both sides. You get the dopamine of achieving, but then you also get the dopamine of the notifications as well. So it's almost like a win-win, in my opinion, if you kind of look at it that way. So time management. Have you heard of that one before? As far as what Jim Rohn's, he said, the greatest asset of the rich is time management. The greatest gift that they use is time management. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all heard that. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, and just depends on how you use it. Sometimes you can delegate, sometimes you can't. But yeah, time management is honestly is one area that I'm working on right now because I don't know if I have like ADHD, but sometimes I feel like I'm all over the place, and my calendar definitely reflected that. So I'm really trying to just clean it up and time block, because that's what, from my understanding, it's, you do this for an hour and that's all you do. You turn your phone off, like you're talking about, no notifications, and you really just sit down and focus on whatever that task is, no matter what. And that's something that I really hadn't done in the past. It was just more of, oh, this thing came in, let me take care of this. Oh, it was just reacting. And honestly, it just drove me nuts. It was not fun. I was just distracted, being pulled left and right. I was overwhelmed. We talked about that on the previous episode here. So yeah, time management is, I can see why Jim Rohn said it's the number one skill, because if you don't manage your time, you know, it's going to go somewhere. And if you're not organized, like you said, with that clarity of where your time is going, then yeah, you're just going to be busy and not really productive. And I've been guilty of that. So I can speak from experience. It's not fun. So suck it up and organize your calendar and really lean into time management.
So if you're not managing your time, somebody else is going to be managing it for you. And it might not be in an area or in a way that you want.
Hmm.
It's like what you're saying, when things come up, because things will. Life is happening to us all the time, whether it's business, whether it's life, whether it's making decisions, whatever the stuff is that's going on out there in your 3D world, it's going to create some distractions where if you're reacting versus responding, like I said, the time management part of that piece, if you're letting other people's emergencies take over your life, you're just reacting to their emergencies instead of focusing on your things, focusing on the things you're trying to accomplish. Now, if there is a dire emergency in someone's life and you need to act upon that, I'm not saying to ignore it. That's not what I'm saying. But a lot of times, other folks, what they perceive to be emergencies out there in life, are nothing more than just uncertainty within themselves. But when you get crystal clear on what you're trying to achieve, you can then begin to take your own time management in house. You can separate the idea of, okay, someone is going to come and ask me to do XYZ, or they think that their idea is so important that it has to be done today. One of the things that I was actually having a conversation with my wife the other day, she works in an environment where she has to coordinate things with a lot of different people. There's a lot of different moving parts to get the accomplishment. She's a wedding coordinator. So there's just, if you can imagine, there's just a lot of different parts moving all at the same time, between the family, between guests, between service, as far as like the foods and the drinks. I mean, just everything. Lots of moving parts. But with that said, so there's emergencies all the time. So the bride will have an emergency, or the bride's mother will have an emergency, or you see where I'm going with that, or even within in house. So the catering, the part of the food that's being processed, they'll have an emergency. I've tried to work with her because sometimes she'll get overwhelmed, get consumed with these distractions. And so what will happen is that she will get pulled in so many different directions that the main focus of making sure that the bride and the family is having the best day of their life kind of falls to the wayside, because she's got so many different things going on at the same time. So I've worked with her, I've tried to work with her on trying to just allow and not, or more so not allow other people's emergencies to take over her own and cloud her own thoughts, cloud her own time management. And when she is able to do that, yes, she still takes care of the things that are quote unquote emergencies for all these other folks, but they may not be as important as the big scheme of things, the clarity of exactly what the large goal is for that particular day. That's something that I've been working on with her, talking through that. Now, when you're going through those situations, I get it. It's not easy. It's not fun. Meaning when you're being bombarded from all over the place, from this distraction or this idea or this, someone needs this or someone needs that. That's not the most easy time to think, okay, I just need to shut it all down, forget about it. What am I focusing on? I understand that. That can be that can be a challenge. But what I'm asking you to do today is, how can you set some of these parameters up in the beginning? Where can you take control of your calendar? Greg is great about using the calendar. I will be honest with you. My calendar is not the best. I'm not the greatest at that. I use my journal. My journal a lot of times is my calendar. I go through and I will write out what I'm trying to get done in a particular day or at a particular time. but I need to get better at transposing that over into a calendar. That way I can time block, like you're mentioning right there for yourself, Greg. I love that. So, but that's kind of the question I have for you today, folks, as you listen to us. Where is it that you're missing out on the clarity? Where are you missing out on the time management from your own life? Where is it you're allowing other people's emergencies to distract you? Where are you allowing the social media platforms to distract you, to pull you away from the things that you want to accomplish in your life? And when you become aware of those things, you can take different actions. Get better at time blocking on your calendar. Greg, you could probably talk about that even a little bit more, because like I said, I'm not great at that as well. I hear that a lot. People will say, if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't get done. And I've
Yeah.
heard that, just like I used to push back on journaling. I'll be flat out honest. I used to push back. So I honestly will push back on that calendar idea as well. So maybe help me a little bit, and maybe help the listeners out there too, as far as thinking that how, or realizing how important that piece of the time management and eliminating those distractions is through that calendar.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the calendar works. I think for a lot of people it does, but it's not 100% for everybody. So you really have to find what tool really works for you. But I know a lot of people live and die by their calendars, like you're talking about. And I had a buddy who used to make fun of me because I used to put like oil changes and haircuts and everything in my calendar. And he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, if it's not on there, I'm just going to forget about it, or it's just not going to get done. So I've tweaked that a little bit, but yeah, just having those time blocks is it's huge, because it's literally like, this is what I need to do right now, not like, what should I do right now? Because if you ask, what should you do right now, I can find a million things that are not going to get me to my goal, but I can definitely do them. Social media being one of them. Maybe eating some bad food that I shouldn't be eating for my health goals. That's another one. But if it's on my calendar, it's like, no, we're recording from, this time to this time. There's nothing else that's more important than that task. And it's really just getting your mind around that severity or that dedication to, you know, whatever, that half hour or that hour that you put on your calendar. Sometimes I'll just even turn my phone down, like flip it around the other way so I don't get any of the light coming in or anything like that. So yeah, just kind of depends on your situation. But if you're a calendar person, just utilize it. It's not just like a guideline. It can be very rigid. And if you really want to achieve your goals and not get distracted, then utilize that calendar if you're that calendar person.
So, question for you, just because I want to learn how you do it. I know there's probably multiple different ways of doing it to get the best results, but for yourself, how often do you revisit it? Do you set it up a month at a time? Do you set it like your availability if you're reaching out to different folks? How often do you revisit it to have those blocks available? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah,
How,
usually it's weekly. Sometimes it's daily, because if a meeting pops up my calendar for tomorrow, I'll have to maybe readjust, one of the time frames that I had in there to, make cold calls or do something else. It just depends on the priority of that new meeting versus the the previous thing that I have in my calendar. What's more important? So, but I definitely say weekly for sure, and then daily depending on if things come in, or yeah. So daily, weekly.
Love that. Love that. Thanks for sharing that. So that's one thing I need to get better at as well. So admittedly, I need to continue to get better at utilizing my calendar so that way I can maximize my time uh, to its fullest. When I get clear of what I need to work on, I need to get crystal clear on my calendar as well. So I appreciate you bringing that to the table. So folks, just understand, and you might even be thinking to yourself, or you might even say it out loud, that you don't have time. You don't have time to achieve whatever goal you're trying to get done, whether it's a health goal, wealth goal, doesn't matter. Well, my pushback to that is check and make sure that you're not utilizing your time to the best that you possibly can. Are you being distracted by different areas in your life? I talked about the notification I get each week. Where is it for you? You can probably go in your phone today, and if you're not getting that notification, especially if you're on Apple, you can probably set it up for yourself and get that, and start tracking how much time you're spending on your phone, not necessarily accomplishing anything. Now, though, I will tell you that there are times that I'm on my phone when I'm posting, like I'm working for, trying to promote the podcast and that type of thing. Now, in that time, or that window of time where it gives me that notification time at the end of the week, that is part of it as well. So it's like I almost need to subtract those ideas out also. But I will also tell you that, yeah, sometimes I scroll around on Instagram or I'm on TikTok. I actually like watching some of the videos on TikTok. So yeah, I will do that, but I need to eliminate that as much as I possibly can. When I get crystal clear on exactly what I'm trying to do, I need to get better at utilizing my calendar to block my time. That would definitely be an encouragement for you here today. But get a hold, become aware of the distractions that are going on in your life. That's what I wanted to bring to the table here today. Get clear. Keep asking yourself that question. What is it that you truly want? What is it that you truly desire? When you answer that question, or when you have some clarity to that question, I believe the distractions will start to dissipate. They'll start to fall away because you won't have the urge or have the need for these dopamine hits of seeing what's going on Instagram. You're going to be feeling, or you're going to be feeling great about yourself because you're going to be out there accomplishing and doing the things that you want to do, which is what is it's exciting. It's exciting. It makes it more fun. Life becomes enjoyable versus a mundane grind. And that's what I wish for you definitely moving forward. So, man, any more last thoughts as far as the distraction piece? This has been, as always, a lot of fun. Hopefully, the folks are finding some value in it.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we can probably have another episode on different types of distractions. I know we're talking about the cell phone a lot here. Maybe like a teaser for another episode down the road is I've heard people talk about television, how it's just the biggest distraction of all. And it's like the biggest social acceptance of distraction. Cause I'm pretty sure, I don't want to say a percentage, but most people, they eat dinner, then they watch TV or Netflix or whatever. So anyway, just want to throw that out there. I think TV is definitely a distraction. I think we all take part of it or partake in it. But yeah, we can maybe have a discussion on that of, is it really worth it? Or how big of a distraction is it? Because it is socially acceptable, these days, just like the cell phone is, becoming the same thing, that social norm. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there as a teaser, maybe for an episode down the road.
Love it. So, yes, time on platform. And I'm pretty sure that's the metric that is one thing that I watch on the back end of the Rich Mind and the Rich Mind podcast, because that is what these companies, these social media companies, are looking for. Same thing with television. They're trying to get you on their channel to have you watch their advertisements, and that's how they make money.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what their goal is. Their goal is to get you time on platform. Uh, so just remember that. So if you're being distracted, if you're being sucked down into these rabbit trails of different things that are not necessarily working towards your own goals, understand that it's by design. They're trying to do that on purpose. And yeah, I like that. The TV is a perfect example. You can get sucked into a series, watching a series, and one episode leads to the next, leads to the trailer, leads to the, you know what I mean? It just keeps going. And that's how they keep you locked in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's becoming aware of it and shutting it down when the time comes for you to put the work in, to get the accomplishment, to work towards this big goal that you've got set for yourself, shutting things down. And we talked about that here today, different things. One other last thing is a potential thing that you could try to do on my phone. Once again, this is an Apple phone. I silence any calls that they're not in my contact list. So if someone reaches out to me that is not in my contact list, it immediately goes to voicemail.
Nice.
Well, so that I've had to learn that. I get maybe a dozen calls a day from just most of the time it's solicitors that are just trying to sell you something. It's not anything important. So that would maybe be another idea, is you can go in their settings. If you are really interested, I can go in there and figure out exactly how I did it. I did it a while ago, but in your settings, I'm sure there's a way you can silence calls from people that are not in your contacts. And that in of itself has saved me. Think about that. How many minutes or
Time.
hours I've saved myself of random calls from random people that have no interest in my goals and what I'm trying to achieve. So I just wanted to leave that one for you as well. So the idea of distractions, where are you being sucked down rabbit trails on a daily basis? Get a hold of your own metrics. Try to figure out where you are falling a little bit short, being distracted out there. Clarity. That's been the one word that we've been using here in the last couple of episodes, is getting crystal clear on your goals and getting some clarity of where you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to accomplish is going to help you break free from the overwhelm in the last episode and break free from the distractions that we're talking about here on this episode here today. So go out there, focus on being great. We appreciate your time and attention. If you wouldn't mind sharing this episode and others with your family and friends, we'd greatly appreciate that. Go to your podcast platform of choice and leave us a review. We'd love to hear that as well. And you can actually reach out to us, info@richmind.co. Let Greg and I both know kind of what your thoughts are. If you maybe have some different ideas and different things that you're using to try to eliminate some of the distractions in your life, bring them to the table. Let us know. We would definitely try to try to implement them into our life, and then obviously we can share them here on the podcast as well. So as I mentioned, go out there, focus on being great, have a fantastic day, eliminate some of those distractions, and go out there and accomplish everything you're meant to do, everything you're meant to be. You can do it, and Greg and I are here to support you in every way we possibly can. So have a fantastic day, and we'll talk again very soon. Until then, bye now.